Out of 650 studios, you rank top 5 for lead gen.
You have to pull them in and you have to get them booked right there.
It was anywhere between 200 and 600 leads each month. And then your close rate?
Close rate is about 60% as well.
Now that's really good. Wow. Now, did you have a background in running a business before this?
None. Zero.
Okay, Lindsay, you are a top 5 Pure Barre franchisee, which, as of my most recent report, they've got over 650 locations globally. You've won Franchise of the Year twice in the last 5 years, and you continue to stay in the top 5 in lead generation. And we're going to talk a lot about that because you do some really unique things specifically with lead generation. And when I say unique, I mean things that the average gym and fitness studio is just not doing, and it works really, really well. And you also have a really strong background in academics and research design and statistics, so which obviously made it a lot more natural for you to talk about your data approach way of marketing, and we're going to dive into that as well. And you're training to be a contortionist. What?
Yes.
So, Lindsay, welcome to the GSD show. You ready to get started?
I am.
Okay, we're going to dive into the contortionist thing first. Let's get it out of the way because I'm not going to be able to focus on anything else until I know that you can help me break this down. Because I don't know personally anyone that's done this. And so walk me through, what's this contortionist thing about?
It's just something I always wanted to do. I've always been really fascinated with really flexible people. And so it was actually during COVID in 2020, I dropped into an online flexibility class full of 8-year-old children and myself. And I just kind of stuck around. I kept doing it and I'm getting better and better and better. And it's also a really good way to learn about joints and mobility and retaining that as you get older.
So what's the craziest thing you could do right now? Like if somebody was to see you do it, a regular person was to see you do it, they kind of go like that.
I can bring my foot back and touch my head.
Yeah. That's wild.
So that's a little crazy. That's new. I just learned that one.
I mean, there's a difference between learning and doing. I feel like I could learn it and not do it. I could watch you do it and go like, okay, I know what to do. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it. Okay, so let's dive in. You've been with Pure Barre for how long now?
I have been a bar teacher. I think my 8-year anniversary just came up.
As a bar teacher, but what's the origin story? Like you were a teacher before you got into the franchise as an owner, correct?
Yeah.
So how long were you a teacher for? And then what was that transition like? How did you get into owning a Pure Barre?
So I own the location where I taught. And it was a really natural transition. I know everybody here. I knew all the instructors, and I just purchased the location from the previous owner.
Well, how long ago was that?
3 years, 4
3
years,
years?
about 4 years.
Were they looking to sell? Like, did they make an announcement? You were like, oh, I want that. Or did you approach them? How did that go?
I actually was thinking about opening a location in a different city.
Okay.
And then I wanted to look at the data and see real numbers from the owner. And then that's when she let me know that she actually wanted to sell the studio. So she wanted to take a step back. So it was never announced. It was a really
Wow.
easy transition. And she wanted somebody to take over the studio that was already present here.
Wow. Now, did you have a background in running a business before this?
None. Zero.
Were you scared?
A little bit, but at the same time, if the door is opening and it's something I always wanted to do, I had to take it and see what happens.
Wow. Okay. Now, you do have an impressive background, and not necessarily in business ownership or entrepreneurship, but in schooling. So, and which I want to dive into for a minute, because I think once we dive into lead gen and how you approach lead generation and marketing as a whole, you could see like there's a reason that it plays into it. So talk to me about your schooling. What was that like?
Well, I have a PhD, and it is in experimental psychology, which is basically just research design and statistics. It's kind of a funny story because my first job out of college was in the fitness space, and I thought that I couldn't make that a career. And so I went back and got a master's and PhD. Then I was a
Wow.
professor for a little while. So I was a professor for about 8 years or so before owning the bar
Okay.
studio.
Wow. And what were you teaching?
Statistics and research design.
That's such a non-entrepreneur thing to be good at. Like we love statistics, we love them, but to like study it like that, that's unusual. But it doesn't mean it's bad. There's people that are really great at it, but it's just you don't hear it, right? Entrepreneurs typically the ones that you more often meet are the like the artists, the creatives, the ones that they like doing the fun stuff, but they don't like building the reports, looking at the data, and making logical decisions off of the data, which I think gives you a competitive advantage to have not only that interest but that wiring and the training behind it. We're always looking for a competitive advantage as business owners, and I would say that's definitely one of yours. So I want to talk about the dynamic that you've got with your team, because yes, you are the entrepreneur, but typically the entrepreneur is the outgoing one. You and I talked yesterday, and you were like, "Yeah, I'm not really that outgoing. That's not me."
No.
And so, but usually that's the entrepreneur, the hyper energetic, the social person, and that gets bored by data aggregation and spreadsheets. But you love to use the data and use it all the time. So, how does your business get the best of both worlds? That art, where art meets science.
Okay. I think it's important to hire people on my team that are going to provide something extra, like something that I personally can't do. So most of the members of my team are really outgoing, they're fun, they interact with the members. I'm a little less so. I do interact with our members. I would just say I'm not quite as outgoing. And so I kind of work on everything behind the scenes to make sure that runs smoothly, the business side of things. And then I hire people to kind of build that community in the studio.
That's great. And now, because of the way that you operate, so you basically are typically doing the stuff that most entrepreneurs hire for, right? Like you're usually it's that outgoing person, and then hey, I need someone to wrangle me and keep me in line. So in this case, you're wrangling and you're making sure that everyone's like, hey, listen, I know you guys are fun, we're sociable, but we also got to stay in process and stay in system and all that.
Yeah.
How do you feel? How do you feel it might be different for hiring people? Because usually when you're looking for that number two, you're looking for that person that is more of that operational type person. Has it been different for you based on what you've heard from other franchisees that are in your network?
I think so. My general manager role is probably structured a little bit different. It's more on retention and sales, I would say, and then I do more of the business side. But it's just allocating tasks based on what people are good at.
Yeah.
And that's what I like to do because you need to highlight what your team is really, really awesome at.
Yeah. So one of the challenges that I typically have with the gyms that I work with, and for those listening, for those of you it's your first time listening, I actually am the CEO of a company called Loudroomer. We work and coach hundreds of fitness studios all throughout the world, 11 different countries, 60 different franchise brands, hundreds of independent brands. And what I've noticed is there's such a trend of what they do with their marketing. And when I say marketing, I'm specifically referring to the promotional part of the marketing where they're wanting to get attention, get people to know who they are. And what I notice is it's that art, it's that creative. And so they're putting highlight reels up and stuff that's happening in the studio and all the fun stuff. And the one of the challenges that I've had is, hey, let's not just post stuff. Let's not just be random. Let's use data and information to be able to make decisions as to what we should post more of. Because if we're wasting time just posting stuff, I'd rather use that time doing something more productive. With you, you kind of already do that. So I would like to talk with you first about a few of the main lines that you have as far as generating leads. Because when we talked, out of 650 studios, you ranked top 5 for lead gen. And then I asked you how many leads you generate per month. And you told me it was anywhere between 200 and 600 leads each month. Is that right?
That's right.
And the 600 leads, that depends. You said there's certain things that happen throughout the year that give you that boosted month, right? What are those things specifically?
We like to attend events. So we always go to bridal shows. We're going to an event the local hospital is putting on. It's like a wellness day. And we go, we set up tables. Sometimes we offer free classes like right there. And we get people booked into their first class while we're there. And then we're
Yep.
following up with them. We're chatting with them. They know us personally. we're getting them in the studio.
Okay, so I want to dive into that. In fact, we're going to probably spend some time on that. Um, with this 200 to 600 leads, let's just say your average month on a typical month, what would be the percentage of leads that you get that actually book? Like, let's say you got 100 leads, just for easy math, people listening.
Mm-hmm.
You got 100 leads. How many would you expect to book out of that?
50 to 60.
So about a 50-60% book rate. Okay.
Right.
And then what about show? What percentage of that group would show?
Depends on how we contact them. So if we're getting them at these shows and things like that, and we're making that personal connection, we get more shows, but roughly about 60%. That's something we need to
60.
work on.
Okay. And then your close rate?
Close rate is about 60% as well.
Now that's really good.
Mhm.
That's really good. I do agree the show rate, you have opportunity there, but with the close rate, it's excellent. And if you get that show rate up, the close rate's going to do even more, right? Because now you're closing so many more people. Book rate seems pretty good, especially with the type of leads that you're generating. I would say that's actually pretty good. So let's dive into the main lead generation lines that you have. When we spoke, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on was because of these three things. We talked about the pop-up community events. We're going to dive into that a little bit more. And then you also work with an ad agency to do paid ads. I'd like to dive into that. And then you do something really cool with your own Facebook events, which I'd like to dive into that as well. So let's start up at the top, which is where I would say 80% of businesses usually go to first, which is paid ads and usually hiring an ad agency. So I've got my philosophy, and we talked, and I realized your philosophy is similar to mine. Mine was you shouldn't hire an ad agency as a set and forget it deal. That's not how it works. You shouldn't just go, okay, I'm going to hire an ad agency. Hey, we need leads. Go ahead, do what you got to do. And then from there, they have to come up with the offer, and they come up with the creative, and they come up with the content. And next thing you know, you're doing a free week trial or a 30 for 30, or you're doing something that is very similar, and your copy and your image, everything looks like everybody else's generally. And then it doesn't work as well. And then you wonder why it's not working as well. And it's because you've delegated this strategy to the person that's probably an account manager at an ad agency, right? That's not your gym. And you're, as a CEO, it's your job, right? Like a CEO. And the reason I say this confidently is because that's what you're doing. And you are very clear as to what you're looking for, but then you dive in deep. So that's what I'd like to talk about. So I want you to imagine I'm your account manager at the ad agency. What's our relationship like? How are we working together in order to make sure that you get the most out of our service?
There's a couple of things. I meet with my account agent at least every 2 weeks. And typically, right before a big event, we'll meet and get everything all set up. I would say a couple times a week, we're emailing. One of the bigger things I do that I don't see other people do is anytime I get a lead and I talk to them and they're not what we're looking for, I'm finding out which ad they came from, what copy they came from. I'm keeping notes. In addition, when we get a lead that's really hot and that is exactly what we're looking for, same thing. What ad copy did they see? I'm keeping notes. And across time, it really helps build up a solid group of ads that you can run that are going to stand out and bring in your ideal audience. But you have to actually dive into that and then keep track of what is working and what is not working.
Now, there's going to be some people listening and they're going to say, isn't that their job?
You'd think, but really it's me making the investment. So I want to make sure that's going well. And so I'm deeply involved in getting those leads in the studio and making sure those ads look the way I want them to.
I love the way that you framed it, investment. So, I had an ad agency for years. We had just sold it in July of 2024. So we don't have an ad agency anymore. And I remember that was the same way I would look at it, right? It's an investment, but you're not investing in our company. You're investing in your company. So the set it and forget it is great if you're investing in the agency's company. You go, hey, we're investing in you guys. Here's some money. Do something with it. Make it into more. Good luck, right? That's different. In your case, you're like, no, I'm investing it in my company, and I just need you to execute on some of the things I need you to execute on. And so Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, these are some of the greatest investors of all time. Munger's no longer with us, but these guys only invest in businesses where they can have a seat at the table and they can actually have voting rights and be able to say, hey, these are some of the changes I recommend making. So with you, you go, hey, I'm investing in my business, but I do have control on the return on investment. And I can take some notes and I can do that. So how does that conversation go? Does the agency find you annoying because you're so involved? Do they find you helpful because you're working with them? Like, what's it like?
I think they find it helpful because I'm directing them. They're not just left in the dark. So
Right.
I'm not giving them and sending them an email saying, hey, this isn't working, and then expecting them to magically fix it. I'm sending them an email and saying, hey, this ad, I think, is pulling in bad leads. Can we switch it out? Here are some new pictures and videos from my studio that you can use in ads. They really appreciate that because I'm not using the same generic content. Plus, there's a bonus if you have some local photographs. People in your area might recognize people in those social media ads, and then they're calling and they're saying, "Hey, I recognize so and so in this social media ad." So
Yeah.
I think the ad agency finds it very helpful that I'm more involved because I'm not just leaving everything up to them. I'm sitting here in my local market, and so it is up to me to direct what's being shown here. They're not here.
Yeah. You're doing a couple sneaky things too that I really like
Yeah.
with competitor targeting. Can you talk about what you do in paid ads with your competitor targeting?
Yes, this originated when I started thinking about bar. Um, I would say at least half the people that call up here, they're asking what bar is. Okay,
Right.
it's a PR problem. They don't know what it is. However, if you put in keyword Pilates, that is something everybody knows and everybody is searching for. And it's a similar enough workout that when people go to search for Pilates, you want your ad to come up. And that goes for any competing studios too. So, recently we had some Pilates studios opening in town that were competing. Cool. Add that in as a keyword. So when people go to search for that, they're getting that Pure Barre ad.
I love that. So now here's why it's also pretty interesting. I, as a customer of things, like even the gym that I go to, I go to a couple different gyms. The couple gyms that I go to, I know where it is generally, but whenever I need to, I'd rather just Google the gym when I need to call them. I'll Google the gym when I need directions. I'll Google the gym when I want to find hours. So I'll Google the gym anyway. And so just by doing that, I'm now going to be targeted by your ads,
Yes.
which means you're not just targeting people that are looking for a gym, you're targeting for people that go to your gym and operate in the same way that I do.
Right.
It's pretty cool, pretty sneaky.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of ads do they see? Are these Google ads? Are they Instagram ads? Are they Facebook ads, YouTube ads? Where would they be retargeted to?
Facebook, Instagram, and Google as well. So
Okay.
that's where those ads are getting targeted.
And with Google, is it just the search ads that are at the top of the search results, or is it like banner ads and display ads and all that too?
Just at the top of the search results.
Just at the top of the search. Okay. Um, you also work with keyword targeting as well, because like you said, people may not know bar as much as PR problems. There's just brand equity in the modality that needs to be developed. But people know yoga and Pilates a lot more. So talk to me about how you've leveraged that as well.
Well, it really it's watching social media and kind of seeing what people are talking about
Okay.
because I don't know anybody else's experience, but my experience talking with people about fitness is generally people are using buzzwords or keywords. They're not necessarily sure what they're looking for, but they know the terms that get passed around a lot. So Pilates, yoga, HIIT, strength training, any of those things that somebody might Google, they're hearing about it on social media. You want those keywords in your ad, and you want people who are typing those into Google to come up with your ad.
I love that. Now, when you say you're taking notes and you're being able to find common denominators of what's working, what's not working, so you can get back with your agency, make some suggestions, test some new stuff. Let's start with first. Where are you taking these notes? Like, how are you aggregating the data and where? Like, are you using any tools? Is it just on Google Docs or Google Spreadsheets, Notepad? What are you doing in order to keep organized with it all? I can't imagine someone like you isn't using the most organized system.
Excel spreadsheets are super easy,
Okay.
or Google Drive spreadsheets, either one. It's super easy to put it in. I keep lists of leads that come in, whether it's what we're looking for or what we're not looking for. And then I'll take a batch of them, send them back to the ad agency and say, hey, what did they see? So I can try and figure out what is the common denominator between those people so that we can fix it. But I usually just keep everything in Excel.
Now, do you do anything differently during seasonal times like Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, back to school, for Black Friday? Like, do you guys focus on changing out like, obviously there's times like in, you know, June, like what's happening in, well, Father's Day, maybe. I guess there's Father's Day. But with bar, I don't know how much of your demographic is dads and if that's something you really focus on targeting. But do you guys leverage seasonality at all?
We do. We do events in studio, and we always put those up in our ads.
Okay.
It
So
helps
you run
highlight.
ads to the events that you're about to have.
I do. Yeah.
Okay, this is a great transition then, because one of the things that you also do is Facebook events, which, just so you know, as soon as I got off the call with you, I called my partner right away. I was like, hey, we need to do some Facebook events. So this is really great. So you actually create events on Facebook, and then do you run ads to the event, or is it organic and then you're running an ad separately to it? I guess walk me through, how do you leverage Facebook events in order to really get a lot of leads in?
Sure, I do both. So I try and get any of my team members, employees, and members to share it because if they start sharing the Facebook event, it's going to show up in more people's feeds. In addition, you can put just a little money behind it, so $25 or so to boost it so that
Hmm.
more people see it and generate leads that way. And I do events for all kinds of stuff. Like we just did a Kentucky Derby event. So that was running for about 2 weeks before the Kentucky Derby. Right now, I'm pre-advertising our June challenge that's coming up. And so I'm getting everybody hyped up and excited for that. And I just started that one yesterday. But I do events for everything we're doing in the studio because if you get people on Facebook to pass it around and their friends see it, it actually produces a much better result than
Yeah.
just some paid ads.
But yeah, I mean, like the other day, I got a notification that this friend of mine is going to an event locally. And then I was able to click on it. I saw four other friends of mine were going, and now I'm starting to look at the event, right? And I'm paying attention to it. And so I thought that was really, really cool. Now you say you created a Facebook event page for everything that you do in studio. When you say everything, that's a big, general, broad term. So what's included in everything?
We have a monthly calendar where we do different events, and I usually try and do at least one big event per month, something that'll highlight the studio, make it look fun. But realistically, I would create Facebook events for anything. You're having a
Okay.
special playlist day, Facebook event.
Come
You're
on.
having a celebration in studio, Facebook event.
Well, like what celebration? What would be an example of like what's the most vanilla thing that you've created a Facebook event for, and you're like, but it worked?
I mean, I always do Black Friday because
Well, that's
everybody
not
do.
vanilla. That's like I mean, like a playlist day, right? Like, hey, new playlist. Like to me, that's like really like but like you just created an event around it, and it's
Yeah.
obviously worked. So to me, vanilla is like the most basic. Like, what's the most basic thing you've created an event for?
I do every open house that we do, which is realistically just our free bar intro class. It's the same thing. There's not any changes to it. We just call it an open house. So I do open houses. Recently we did a Pulse with Posty Facebook event. So it was an all day Post Malone themed playlist day. And so you can get people in if they get really excited about that. The trick is you can't be overly zealous with the Facebook events, right? So
Right.
I try and do maybe a couple a month, but
Okay.
to highlight something different in studio.
Okay. So not one a month, a couple a month you do.
I try, yeah.
Now, do they have, let's say, open house day, where that's really just your free first session, right? Where people can come in. So, okay, so they come because you don't do the way that you guys are set up. Uh, if I'm coming in, I have like 3 or 4 options a week that I can come to test out Pure Barre, right? It's not like every
Yeah.
session you could have a free guest, right? There's
Right.
specific sessions for guests.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's say there's 3 of them. You just pick one of those and you go, we're gonna have a Facebook event to this, right?
Mhm. Yeah, call it
Now,
open house.
okay, got it. And now with that, what if they showed up but they didn't register? They just saw the event, they came in. Is that okay?
That's okay. Um,
Do you ever have a
Generally, if
problem
I
with capacity?
not usually, if I have more people coming in, I'm always happy. And I've even added extra classes sometimes on that
Wow.
same day
Okay.
to accommodate. So I'll watch that closely, and it depends. If something's filling up, add another class. If it's filling
Okay.
up, add another class.
And so like we talked about the post with Posty, right? Like
Yeah.
that's a Facebook event that just celebrates a class that we're just gonna have Post Malone, or it's all day Post Malone. I don't know, whatever it is. Um, so when you come up with something like that, and then obviously you have stuff like that as well. I guess what is the expectation? Like, are do we have images of Post Malone in there as an example? Like, how are you hyping this thing up, and what are you expecting out of something like that?
Yeah, the Post Malone one, I created like a little playlist. It looked like you're playing it on your phone. So like you're just playing media on your phone, and it said Pulse with Posty.
Okay,
And then the Kentucky Derby, I did some creative copy with a bunch of hats and then put like the little branding logo in the corner. Encourage people to come to the studio wearing hats. We had a lot of fun. Everybody took pictures in the studio in their hats. Then they're sharing that on social media, so that's a good thing.
right. I mean, if
So
anybody engages with that event, their friends are able to see it. Do you ever create events like, let's say, the Post with Posty or the Kentucky Derby, any of those? Do you ever go outside of it as well, like Meetup.com or Eventbrite or Nextdoor or any of those, a separate Facebook group just for like Love It moms or Love It, residents, anything like that?
I do share it to different groups in town. So one of the bigger ones is called Lubbock in the Loop here, and they share all the events going on in town. And so I definitely share with them, and then I'll try Facebook's really cool because when you do an event, you can invite up to 500 of your followers. So you can go through the list and find all those groups and then share it to
Wow.
them.
When you say Love It in the Loop, is that a separate website or is that a Facebook group within Facebook?
That's a separate website, but they have a
Then
Facebook page. But
yeah. So you found companies that are like basically wanting to, like, that's their business. Their business is to promote events that are happening locally or promote local business.
yeah, and I'd say most cities have these now,
Yeah.
because that you need something to aggregate all the stuff coming up in a town.
So if, let's say, you move to a new city, let's say Scottsdale, what would you Google in order to find something like that?
Events in Scottsdale.
That's it. Just events in
Yeah.
Scottsdale. Look for all the different options, and these are the places where I'm going to put my events.
Yep.
It's pretty cool. Now, one of the things we talked about as well was sales, because you're closing at 60% or higher, which means the people that are coming in, you're wrapping up, which is great. And I asked you about sales training. How often do you do it, and what does that look like? Can you dive into that?
Yeah. All of my team, they shadow, I would say, for probably a good month or so before we let them even do sales. So they're coming in and they're shadowing these intro classes, watching how sales is done, um, making phone calls, but being observed while they're doing it. So that we can make sure they're getting the right information. And then before every intro class that we do, we always have a little team meeting. We'll go over different things. Who is coming in? What are their goals? Who's the best person to sell to that person for whatever reason? There's a
Mhm.
variety of reasons we could choose that. And then we are setting those things up before that class even starts.
That's great. So you do sales training essentially at the minimum 3 times a week.
Yeah.
We did this really cool exercise that you might find pretty interesting, and we had a bunch of our gyms on the call, and what we did was we said one person brought up their close rate was really struggling, and it was low. It was like 10%, right? They had just joined in. It was like
Mhm.
10%. but they got so many leads in that it never affected them. They were still doing 100 grand a month, right? Even at 10%, they were doing 100 grand a month. And now we had another person that I knew was on the call that was closing a lot higher. He's one of our higher closing ones. So I said, hey guys, here's what I like everybody to do. I want everybody to go ahead and put in your closing percentage in the chat. It was a Zoom call, right? So everybody, we just had on the chat,
Yeah.
40%, 50%, 30%, 80%, whatever. And I said, okay, now I want you to comment on your own comments, so they're stacked, with the frequency in which you do sales training. How often do you do sales training? It was so great. Everybody, like you saw people put in the mind blown emoji, because what I hoped would happen happened. The person that was doing 10% they said never do sales training. As far as how often do you sales training, never. The person that had 80% daily. The person that had 50%, 2 to 3 times a week. And it was everything in between that. It was like a total scale. And so if anybody's wondering, like, how is she closing 60% of her leads, especially when so many of her leads are coming from paid ads and events, those are typically harder to close than the referrals, and those we feel comfortable with. Well, sales training 2 to 3 times a week will do that for you. So that's excellent. Okay. The next thing I want to dive into is what you do with your pop-up events. So like you go to events, and there's certain events that you feel are more powerful than others, and you really like targeting those. But I'd like to know about your strategy with that. Let's say I came in, I'm your new marketing director. You hired me, and you said, here's the deal, Mike. I want you to lead the community events portion of our business. Train me on what that needs to look like, and how do I need to think through it?
Okay. There's a couple of big events that are non-negotiable for us that we always attend. So those you have to go to. And then I like to look for other events in town.
Oh, wait, can we say what those are? What are those?
The bridal show is our biggest one for sure.
Okay.
Pure Barre is, well, in West Texas at least, it's mostly women. And so the bridal show is a really good one to do. And what we do at the bridal show is we set up a table. We sit there. I usually staff about 3 people. And that way we can pull more people to the table. We sit there, we're chatting with you, we're getting you booked for your first class. We're talking to you about your wedding. We're getting to know the other people with you, because it's usually mother of the bride, bridesmaids, things like that. They're coming to the first class with you. So you're coming with your friends. And that's what we do at these events. You're just setting up a table, but you have to actively chat with people. You have to pull them in, and you have to get them booked right there. I think when I see a lot of people set up a table somewhere, they kind of stand behind it. And they're just like, hey, how are you? It's, hey, have you tried a bar class? Hey, come talk to us. Like, let's get you in. Who's this? When's your wedding? Anything you can do to get the conversation started, and then they'll move towards you. And then you get them booked with their friends, so they're more likely to show up.
I like that. So let's take like the bridal show. You mentioned on the call, one of the things that you ask, and a lot of people don't ask, is for the list of leads, right? Or list of attendees, right? So train me on that. What am I supposed to do? How do I get this mythical list here, Lindsay?
You have to ask. I've had people not send it to me before, but generally when a place is having an event like that, they're going to make people register, which means at a minimum, we've got name, phone number, and email address. And so I always just ask the event organizer for the list of attendees. And normally they'll just give it to you. And then boom, right into my lead system.
And then from there, your team is following up same day while they're at the event, the next day, a week. Like what does that look like?
We always do day 1 through 4. So that's where we start. We call and text. So we always do both. And then from day 4, we'll do like day 7, day 10, day 12, day 21. Basically, we're following up with you for 4 months at a different cadence. It goes a little longer as we go on.
Wow. That's great. And then what do you say? Like, because they're not expecting a call. They didn't really opt in. Some of these people may not have even visited your booth, right?
That's okay. I just call them and it's like, hey, we got your name from the bridal show. I just wanted to reach out. We were at the bridal show. I don't think we got to meet you. Can I get you booked for your first class?
And you can say, I don't think we got to meet you because you take the list of people that you connected with at the event and then you separate those from this list. And so that's your pitch to the people that haven't. Okay.
Hmm.
Got it. Now I'm imagining there's a lot of people that probably aren't close enough in living that like they don't live or work close enough to your studio, because I know that when my wife went to the bridal show and when my sister went to the bridal show, they had to go to like downtown Phoenix. So that's like 30, 40 minutes away. So do you get a lot of that?
Yeah, we do, but that's okay. All you do is go in the lead system and Markham is out of town. It's
Yeah.
not really that big of a deal. It's better to have the name and not.
100%, 100%. Yeah. Even if out of 100 people, you only get two or three that are local, you have two or three you didn't have, and then who knows where that can multiply from there. So what other events work really well? So the bridal show is an example of one. Are there other ones that you're like, oh yeah, these are killers?
Yeah, we do pop-up classes. So here in Lubbock, one of the big fancy newer buildings is called the Buddy Holly Center. It's big theater center, and they have an absolutely gorgeous lobby. I organized a free pop-up class down there, and then Facebook event, get people to respond, and then as people are coming in, get their name, phone number, and email address. And then we'll talk to new people while we're there. But that just brings attention. People get really excited about going to those new places and
Mhm.
having new experiences. We're also partnering with a local hospital to offer some wellness stuff at their big conference for the year. So they do a wellness conference for the year. We're doing the sunrise classes for them. And then we're also going to set up a table and get people booked for
Mhm.
that as well.
So that website that you use to go to meetings or find the local events and stuff, you just use that to find the events that are available for you to attend as well.
Well, that and networking. I found out about the hospital event because somebody who drops into my studio every once in a while is organizing it.
Yeah,
So I started asking her about it, and lo and behold, now we're offering the workout classes.
I love it. Okay, so I'm going to ask you something here because, and I want you to hear it in the right way because I feel like somebody
Okay.
can hear this and worry. And it's not about you. So you got 650, franchisees, and I can't imagine that some of them aren't going to be able to see or hear this episode. They probably know you and look up to you and the work that you do there. So the question I've got is, this is only to help them develop them. What do you think separates you from the ones that are struggling in the franchise? Like if there was something you could say, like, yeah, this is kind of something I'm seeing as like a common denominator, that if they were to just do this, or if they were to think through this, or if they were to take this more seriously, or if they were to focus more on this or less on that, because it's not just for Pure Barre. I'm just saying that because I know that's the ones you probably can see quite a bit. But for anyone listening or watching, what are you noticing as like kind of a separator between you and the ones that are at your level versus the ones that are not?
Yeah, two big things I think that I do a little bit differently than other people. One is active selling. Um, I've I personally have been to other workout facilities and not even had a follow-up call.
Yeah.
So I think active selling, you have to remember people are coming into your location for a reason. Whatever that is, figure it out, talk to them about taking more classes. So that's one thing I've noticed. Secondly, I do think I'm way more involved with the marketing and stuff than most people. I think most people just expect their ad agency to do it. They're using creatives coming from the corporate office rather than stuff they're doing locally.
Mhm.
And so I'm mixing it up and going through there and kind of figuring out over time what works in my market and what doesn't.
Yeah. How did you learn all of this stuff? I mean, like, is it through networking with other business owners, other gym owners? Is it just Googling stuff, chat GPTing stuff? Like, where are you podcasts? Where are you learning a lot of the stuff that you're doing and that's working so well?
Well, I'm a data analyst by nature. So it all started with me kind of looking into the data. When I first took over the business and I had an ad agency, like many other people, I could not figure out what was going on with the ads. So I needed to learn that. So I started figuring it out. I was constantly on the phone with the ad agency, constantly emailing, asking questions, looking at the data because they'll provide that to you. What's your cost per lead? What's your cost per lead per ad as well?
Mhm.
Like which type of creatives are working, which types of creatives aren't, and you can kind of adjust as you go. But for me, it was just a deep desire to really understand how that worked because it's a space that I'm completely unfamiliar with. And
Yeah.
so I just kind
And
of dove head in and I'm like, somebody explain this to me like I'm five, I'm going to get this.
I love it. Yeah, for everyone watching and listening, I would say that's such a big takeaway because there's definitely a home for paid ads in the business. Like there's 100% a home for it to be able to pay to get in front of people to see what you're doing. But you got to look at the agency as just a cheaper version of an employee, right? Because you don't need a full-time employee to do what they're doing. Therefore, why would you pay for a full-time employee? You can use an ad agency, pay a lot less of a fee. But just like you would have an employee, you still want to be able to manage them. You still want to be able to see what's working and then give adjustments, give suggestions, develop them. And it's the same thing. So if I think people would be more successful if they looked less as their agency as a vendor and more as an extension of their team, as an employee that they're just paying a little differently. That's all.
Yeah, I think that would help. A lot of people think they're just paying money for them to do it. But again, I'm just paying money for the convenience of somebody else setting that up. Otherwise,
Pushing the
I'm
buttons.
involved. Yeah,
Yeah, 100%. Okay. Now, I know you're a big dog person.
yeah.
You had like, I don't know, 2 or 3 dogs. You had a whole farm behind you when we were on the phone the other day. So I know you're a big dog person. So I got a question for you. If you could wave a magic wand and have your dogs be able to do anything that I'm about to mention here from now on, which would it be and why? Here are your options. You ready?
Sure.
Number one, your dog could clean your house for you. And I mean, as good as a top of the line house cleaning company. That's option one. Okay. Or your dog could drive and legally, like the cops would be fine with it. And he could take you anywhere you want to go run errands for you, do any of that. Or your dog could talk, but only in French. Which one would you choose?
I would choose dog could talk. I actually understand some French, so that would work for me.
Wow. So you got to, okay. So, and you'd probably learn more. You would probably teach your French.
Yeah, I mean, I would learn French. That's a benefit of it. I can clean my house, I can drive, but a talking dog in French, that sells itself.
That's pretty badass. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Okay. I just got to say, Lindsay, I really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much and sharing your wisdom. I would love to be able to connect more with you. Hopefully, you're able to make it out to GSDCon in June. And yeah, let's stay connected. You have my number. I've got yours. For everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you so much for tuning in. And we will see you next week.